Power of Empower. It's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're here every day, only because you're here every day. So you make the show and you make the difference, and we're trying to just justify your time, thought, and efforts. And with that said, I'm so honored and privileged to have Rita back with us. Rita's our Wednesday person. Today's word was vision, so we broke up the W side of
You
things,
did.
but everything needs to change in change. With that,
That's part of
also,
it, yes.
so happy to have Kristen Norrie with us today, a
Hello.
brand new guest on the show. I'm so proud to have her. I think she's got a wonderful story, and really is a really good person. And I think that's what qualifies people, good people who want to do good with and by other good people. So that's an easy base, and that's why we share a word. Chat's open. We depend on you for direction. We want to be as relevant and as helpful as possible so you get some valuable takeaways. With that, I'll turn it over. Oh, we've got Omar here to start the game. Not the game, but it is a game in a way because once they start, they never stop. Ashif is here. Thank you so much. I'll introduce Rita before we get too much into comments, but we do value your comments. And one last heads up, whatever your thoughts of vision is, we'd love to hear it also. While we're talking, maybe think about what vision means to you, and that could help everybody with a larger knowledge share. Rita, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. I am on Pacific time, so I've been up since 5:30. So yay, there we go. I'm so excited to have met Kristen already, and we're just really ready to go. So thanks for being here, and we really want to hear your thoughts about vision. So to jump in, vision, let's just start with what do we think vision is? Vision is our everything. Our personal vision and then our professional vision, whether we're in a school or any organizational culture, we have to make a decision right off the bat as a leader. Are we going to have, uh, if I'm the leader, like when I was a principal, is it all top down? Is it my vision that I'm sharing with you and then you have to buy in? That doesn't work for me. What works for me is what I call visioneering, the process of everybody having a stake in this. And so everybody's sitting at that proverbial table. And when we do that, when we have it this way, horizontal, we have shared leadership. And then we really do have a lot of voices helping make the vision. And then once we have the vision, then we start with our mission statements. What do we need to do to have that happen? But it's always been my concern. If it's my personal vision in my personal life, that's way different than an organizational position that I have. And when I have that position, then my vision really doesn't matter as much as what is all of our vision. People, in my estimation, don't always buy in that if there's no purpose or relevance to them, then why should they do it? So I really like, just as personal, but I really like to think of it as a bigger process of visioneering. And with that, I want to introduce Kristen, and let's hear Kristen's thoughts.
Thank you, Rita. It's wonderful to be here today. I really appreciate Don inviting me on. When I think of the word vision, the first thing that really pops into my head is my career and how it didn't go the direction I thought it would. I thought I would always be a teacher, that I would live and breathe working in a school building, for 30, 40, 50 years, if possible. And when my vision shifted, having to kind of redefine who I was and figure out what I wanted to do, it was almost like that whole starting over of, okay, I need a new vision plan. What is my new end goal? And having to take that step back. So that word to me has been just very personal this last year in particular, that I've been on my journey of redefining a career. So for sure, vision is one of those, like you said, you can't not have it. Everything has to, in order to advance, you have to know where you're going and what you want to achieve. So, that's one of the most important things I think that comes along with vision, for sure.
Well, that's great. I think that's a great start to a great word and a wonderful session together. Vision is most of the time people do look forward and think vision is looking forward, and vision is actually just seeing clearly.
Yeah.
Right? Right? You need glasses to read at times. You know, it's not about the future, it's about the now.
Mhm.
And then people have to have vision that looks backwards too.
Absolutely.
That can say, hey, you know, what from the past
Mhm.
seeing here today, not just remembering or reliving, but I just saw a repetition of what I saw 5 years ago. And I mean, in HR, it's the same thing. You see people, and if you do enough interviews, it's like, well, Joe is just like Jim, the way they're starting out on this interview, right? They're not paying attention, they're a little sloppy, whatever it is, you start matching things with the past in
Ah,
order to create the vision of the future. So you take a little bit of yesterday with whatever you have today, take whatever's still relevant today, and you got the better, let's say, stack, and
mhm.
then you go forward with it. And then it's clarity with vision. You know how
Ah,
sometimes you put glasses on and you need to wipe them with a cloth because the prescription is there, but now you have a filter between you and what you're looking at. And I think the key is how clearly, how objectively, and that's why the past, the present, and the future gives you a little bit more comprehensive approach.
mhm.
And do you ask people to share your vision or to correct your vision? Right? You know, when you say to somebody, I see something over there. Did you see what I just saw? Could have
Right.
been an eagle, could have been a car, could have been anything.
Right.
But there's mutual vision. So before turn it back to Rita,
Yeah.
let's just cover these wonderful people.
Oh,
Keep
yeah.
coming with these comments. Omar's here. Ashif is here. So great to see you. Danny's here. Vision, Aries, Knights of the Magical Light, amazing 80s cartoon from my childhood.
I remember that one.
And that's great because validation is so important with vision, you
Yes.
know? And, you know, did I see that properly? Someone said, for
Yeah.
sure, I saw it the same way.
Mhm.
Petra's here.
Good
So
morning.
great to see you. Dean is here. What a wonderful gentleman Dean is. Kelly, can't say enough about Kelly. She's like the, you know, the foundation to the show and where we've been able to come from and to. So thank you, Kelly. Petra says, everyone's vision will change once your goals increase.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody's vision changes because the landscape changes. What, you know, you may be looking at something, but that tree has changed since yesterday or
Mhm.
that pond. So Rita, we got a great
Yeah.
collaboration
Fine
group.
opening. I see. Good morning, Beverly, too. Good morning to everybody. Thanks for being here. Well, as I'm gonna back up to where I was for a minute because I want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding. Um, Generally speaking, a leader is selected to go in because he or she or they have a specific vision. And if this is a school setting, very often that's what the district and the board wants you to do. They want you to go in with that particular vision and make those turns, makes us all stay on top of things. But I still want to go back to that question, and I'd like to ask our friends in our community of belonging, how do you feel when you go to a new position or a new person comes in, if it's not you, the actual full leader, the executive director, whatever? How do you feel about that person coming in with their personal vision that you're supposed to adopt and make it yours to make what they want to happen? Is this okay? Is it fair? Is it just the way it is? What do you think about that? And how do you react?
That's a really good question.
Yeah. it is.
While people are in the audience are thinking about that, I just want to comment
Yeah,
because it's always been throughout my career that whenever we're hiring a new person, I've always been lucky enough to be on that selection committee.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because that is the first thing we do is make sure our vision's going to align with this
That's
person, or
right.
is this person going to be able to fit in with us at our school or at our office, depending upon where it might have been. So I think that's absolutely key, that you have to be able to look at that. And it can be very intimidating when their vision is different from yours.
Yeah. We've always done it this way.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and you see, that's the difference, I think, in entrepreneurial organizations.
Yes.
Because you have, you know, you don't worry about your job, you worry about your business because your business gives you that job.
Yes.
And, you know, to stay in business, you're constantly reinventing that business. So in 4 years or 5 years, it's the new model that's sustainable for the next 5 years.
Mhm.
And a visionary is only as good as their past visions, like anything else,
That's an interesting point, Don.
right? I mean, if I
Mhm.
predict something and it's accurate, the next
Right.
vision is going to be more credible, more believable,
True.
and more people don't need detail. Just, you know, if Warren Buffett came to you and said, I want to give you some business advice, you wouldn't ask for credentials
Right.
or doing a second interview. So your
Right.
vision is dependent on the credibility people have and the confidence they
Yes.
have in you. The other element of vision is who, you know,
Yeah.
vision by itself, vision with you is a start.
Right.
If it can't spread and people can't adopt and align with that vision and go out and
Mhm.
spread the vision through everything, you know, now you've got an incomplete vision, which is like you know, like what looking at half of a picture. You know,
Yeah, right.
you're better off nowhere if you're halfway to nowhere. So, you know, I think what people have to appreciate is seeing far enough to know
Mhm.
the probability and reliability of your
Right.
vision hold. So like, you can make a 1-day plan and be pretty successful
Right,
with
right.
the vision you have
Mhm.
today. If you say, I'm going to the cleaners at 2, I'm eating dinner at 5, and blah, 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 I did it. That vision turned out to be reality. But if you say, in the past, give me a 3-year plan, 3
Mhm.
years is 10 lifetimes now.
Mm-hmm.
So the vision should only be as far as you can see that it's real. And hopefully other people can see enough of it to believe that you see it's
Yeah.
real. In essence, a visionary is a scout,
Uh-huh.
right? In the old days,
Trailblazer.
right?
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
group would stay behind. Some brave woman or man would go out and look over a cliff or somewhere that they've never seen and come back and say, hey, there are deer there, or there's something else there. And
Right.
that person becomes the revered person, right? Because they took the chance.
Yeah.
You know, they went where nobody else
Yeah.
was going. Go ahead, Rita.
Well, I was thinking, I want to tag on before I forget about Warren Buffett that you mentioned. I was really glad you brought him up. Recently, I've listened to several things that Warren Buffett has had to say, a couple of his talks. And he always talks about surrounding yourself with people that you trust, but he lets them go in essence. He feels that, and I agree that maybe everyone agrees that we should have people around us that are willing to make those leaps, those Indiana Jones leaps. So by modeling the vision, then we've got a better shot at finding the nucleus of people who's going to work with us. What happens very often in organizational culture, there'll be one or two, the Madame Defarge, as we used to call them, the people that sat and talked about you in the break room when you were the leader. And this is what you don't want. And that's why the culture building is so important, that goes right along with the vision. If we are going to bring in our vision, and if we're not going to listen to the people around us helping impart what that vision looks like, I don't think it's generally as successful, at least early on. Sometimes change takes us up to 3 years in an organization to really see it happening. But what generally happens is somebody comes in and they either get a quick pop from the Hawthorne effect, meaning it's unusual, it stands out, we'll do this is cool. And then it drops off to the way they used to do it. But it's about getting that energy up that we all do believe and stand behind that vision. And then we start making one mission statement after another to make that a reality. But I think it's really important that we talk about organizational culture, unless we're talking about our own self, our own personal vision for our life. So two different things.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, it's funny. I'm going to actually be on another show later today regarding personalities. And I'm thinking about how this really intersects, and
Right.
that, you know, people look at things through different lenses depending on their
Yes.
personality and their past histories. And, you know, someone that's had a negative experience is going to view something very differently than someone that's always had a positive experience. So
Yes.
keeping that in mind too, and being able to take that step back and say that, you know, we're different and that's okay. You know, we can still work together to come together on this, but recognizing that people work differently and visions don't always look the same, through those lenses, that people have on.
Well, I
That's
think that's
great.
an excellent point, and I
Yeah.
think what it lends itself to is shared vision,
Yes, that's
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's a lot harder to go in. I've got a vision. I want to share it with you, and I'm sharing it with you to adopt it, not to get consensus or to get input.
Mhm.
Right.
But without consensus or input, when you could have got it, it's far more difficult after you initiate something,
Yes.
Mhm.
right? Because someone would say, well, if you would have asked me,
Mhm.
and that's what everybody's waiting for. You look at a plan, you say, hey, it's broken here. You try
Yeah.
to correct it, and someone says, no need. And then you're just thinking it's just a matter of time till it breaks, and I point it out,
Right.
right? And
Right.
now you've just created dissonance
Right.
Yes.
without knowing it. And I love to keep sharing it, passing it around, because I want commitment and ownership, right? You had your chance. This is what you threw in. This is what we accepted. You had your chance. Okay. Now the key is who's going to be responsible and accountable
Right.
to making this happen. So if we agreed the plan was right and we all had a role in it, now who's going to carry it out?
Right. Right. Right.
Is it going to go back to now, thanks for the consensus, thanks for your input, and I'll take the load from here? And I think that's the thing in every word, in any situation, is constant communication.
Right.
I mean, every opportunity. I mean, I had a company at one point had 72 employees under one roof in 42,000 feet. And I had a balance between letting people work and telling them or teaching them how they could work better,
Right.
right? Because you can only have so many group meetings, so many of this. But what I did do that really made all the difference is my office was at the end of the hall. And as soon as you entered the hall, you looked directly at me sitting at my desk. And I knew everybody who was coming and going
Yeah.
in the office. But that door was 100% always open.
Right.
And no one needed an appointment. All they had to see is I wasn't with anybody.
Right.
Right. And if I
Wow.
was
Yeah.
go ahead, Rita.
Well, yeah, I agree with everything that both of you said and the comments that are starting to come in. I think the question mark is if we do go in as the leader, okay, the leader, then what do we do with those who are not with our vision and who are obstructionists?
Right.
So I'm going to toss that to Kristen.
Well, let me get the audience, and
Oh,
then
yes,
we'll
yes,
right
yes,
to Kristen
do that.
because we'll get way too far behind. Okay, so let me go into Janie's here. Haven't seen Janie in a little bit, but welcome. So happy to have you. Here's a new gentleman that I'm not familiar with, but again, thank you for coming. Petra says, but pointing out the person, no matter the who, came up with the great new idea position.
Yeah.
And the thing is you can't be keeping score either. You're a better person. You got to swallow your pride sometimes. Sometimes you got to just, hey, no one's going to appreciate what I'm just about to say. I'm not going to say it. I think that changes, Kelly says, I think that changes the more experience we gain in business early in our career. We may feel more like we have to follow the vision, whereas later we may be more about, does your vision align with me? Alignment is key, and I think that's essential in anything. If it's not aligned, it's not going to work as well as if it is. Beverly comes back and says, very good point. The vision leads to the goal, and you need the plans to take action to achieve it. And just like you're always checking your dashboard, right? You're always thinking, am I going too fast? Do I got enough gas? I mean, you're always constantly taking a look. And it's plan, do, review. And when I walk the building all the time, I never, if I saw you 6 times in a minute, I said hello 6 times to you.
Yeah.
It was just something I would do for everybody. And they would do that. And the last thing about the open door, it gave them to decide when they needed to talk, not when you thought they needed. And while you're taking all these excuses away, right? My door's always open. I've always been respectful.
Right.
I've been happy when you came to see me. Why didn't this happen this time? And you got to make people responsible and say, here's where things are. Because one last rule, everybody respects what they expect you to inspect.
Yes, yes.
Very
Wow.
true.
So
On
with-
that, I'm going to tag there a note I just made for myself here.
okay,
I just wrote down coaching, mentoring, and I wrote mentoring twice. Oh, I better wake up. Coaching and mentoring. So I'm going to give that to Kim for. I mean,
Kristen.
yeah, no, I know that. I was thinking of. Never mind. Never mind. My
Okay.
brain is really going. I got to slow down.
Co-
Yeah.
You're
What do
talking
you think?
coaching and managing.
Yes,
Yeah,
coaching
that's
and mentoring. Everybody
Yes.
needs a mentor, and they really need a coach. Everybody.
absolutely. And that's something that Kelly said early on in the comments too about,
Mhm.
I think a lot of times vision comes with experience and growth. And the longer
Right.
that you're there, the more comfortable you feel voicing what your vision is.
Yeah.
Newcomers to a school or going to be in that position where they might say, oh, I don't know anything. I haven't been here. Maybe I shouldn't speak up. I should listen to what everybody else tells me to do. But that's not always necessarily the right thing either, because there's a reason we're bringing in fresh people with new ideas and new trainings, because we should always be looking at what can we do to make this better.
How would
looking
you do
at
that
vision.
onboarding, Kristen? What would you do with the onboarding part then?
I think that the key is really getting to go back to those relationships, like Don was saying, and the more open that everything is, the more people are going to feel that honesty. One of the things that I have always done in leadership meetings or, in a position of authority is not, like you were saying earlier with the horizontal, everybody sitting kind of on that same playing field, so that everybody feels like their voice is important. And it's just not one person standing up front saying, this is the way it's got to be. So I think that's key, in terms of helping others learning coming into how to do the things the right way.
And we need to really be sure to catch introverts. Yeah, we don't all process the world the same way. And very often the more extroverted people, I hate labels like this, but truly the people that are more outgoing and they're just flying all over, they sometimes have an easier time during a change in vision and mission. But I think we forget sometimes that there are people a little more introverted and their voice counts. Everybody's voice has to count.
Yes.
Well,
Sometimes it's a matter of getting the northerners quiet and getting everybody saying, okay, let's hear from those who haven't spoken up, and giving them a chance to share.
Don, how did you handle dissent or people that just couldn't get with the program of the organization?
Everything either moves in the proper direction or away from it. And as soon as you see something, you need to address it. Now, you don't have to judge it. You just have to say, that's real curious. I don't understand what just happened, right? Can you share something to make me appreciate what this was?
Yes.
Or what was your intent, right? Because you're gathering information. Once you go in and say, that was terrible what you just did, well, you're not going to have a conversation. You're going to have a denial, a justification, or maybe a pushback to say, well, you do it all the time. And now, you get into that stuff. So it gives people some wiggle room and it gives you some understanding. Well, I didn't know you had a flat tire. That's why you missed a meeting. Right. It's not that you just didn't care. And it's really about, I always felt people were in my family when I brought them in my business because it was a family business to begin with. And if you treat people like family, they tend to want a home, not just a job. They want a place of belonging, of recognition, of appreciation, because money becomes an entitlement soon after you get it, right? You get 10 more grand and it's great. You go out, have dinner, and before you know it, you just bought a bunch of stuff or
right.
And now you need that 10 to enjoy getting the 10. And every day is a new day for everybody. I think to your point with dissent, I didn't accept it. I said, there's no reason for it. If someone opens a door and you keep jumping through a window,
that's right.
What's the point? And it just shows you're a me, not a we. You're not into the team. You're not into paying your dues, earning your stripes. And that's just like with education. That's why when you graduate, they call it commencement, because it's the beginning of your education, not the end. So Yeah, dissent never happened because it was like, hey, it's not acceptable. You know,
Mhm.
that's just the way it is. And earlier the better. You know, there was a company called still around, Zappos, right? Shoe company.
Right.
And very innovative, got bought by Amazon for a lot of money. They had a policy after 90 days on the job to offer you $5,000 to leave because
What?
they didn't want any shaky leaves, right? They didn't want to
Makes
continue
sense.
to train you and be in the thing. If after 3 months
Mhm.
you'll take $5,000 and get out, you got a position now that somebody else may not want to leave, right? And
That's
really,
fascinating.
yeah, what it tells you is how much belief and opportunity do you see in our vision as a company.
Yes.
And if you
Absolutely.
can't see another $5,000 in your future with us, then take the five and start something on your own or go somewhere else. And that's the challenge. You know, too many organizational bosses or even
Mhm.
people, they take it too personal,
Yeah.
you know, and they place themselves in a position of really not helping themselves by separation, you know,
Uh-huh.
that we don't talk to you, you talk to that person, and they talk to me, you know, and they just create these layers
Mhm.
that just are like, this is so frustrating. And after a while, I'm just doing a job with
Mhm.
most people. What that means, just over broke. You know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's what a job typically is. But let me get back to these wonderful people. Uh, so many. Wow. Thank you so much for all this interaction. Let's just go. Oh, Mike's here. Mike's the greatest. You've been a busy guy doing great things, Don. Well, I also,
True.
when I see your name, I want to share that the Hounds of Business Community has a town hall tomorrow at
Uh-huh.
1 p.m. So,
You.
you know, that's something to catch up on. You know, and that's the whole thing about
Mhm.
vision is including more people in it. You know, I mean, if you take a family picture, you want everybody in it,
Right.
Yeah.
right? And the bigger you include people, the more you'll be included because it's hard to close a door against an open door, you know?
Mm.
And if it
Yes.
does happen again, it's a test. You want to keep
Mhm.
everything
Yeah.
and everybody, you know, and that's why the communication is so important. Where are you? Where are we off? To your point, in a big meeting,
Right.
when you get shy people or people
Mhm.
introverted, you find another environment to talk to them,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I used to have a bowling night every month for everybody and their families and friends, all free, free food, free bowling. Got to meet the parents, the uncles. They loved it, right? Because when you got the family, the spouses involved, why not? And that's where so many people, they take the cream, leave the milk behind,
Mhm.
you know, and that's where I think engineering resourcefulness inside of people. Most people, they look at vision as what's outside, like Christopher Columbus discovering something that you haven't seen or no one's seen. But why
Yeah.
not discover something that's always in front of you, that's with you,
Right.
and generate that? So your turn, Rita.
Well, I'm looking at comments also. Okay, they're all good. True vision is born from within. Your vision is shaped by your priorities, values, commitment. It's the work of life. I love that.
Yes.
Mm, okay.
And I think, going back to dissent, I don't want to be negative with it, but I think a lot of times it's that the train's leaving the station.
That's
Either you're getting on board or you're staying where you are and we're going without you. And,
Mhm.
it's not to leave people out, but sometimes you have to do that. It's just, well, this is the way it is. We're moving forward. If you choose to join us, that'd be
Yes.
great.
This was the other comment that stood out from Kim. That was what I was looking at. I looked at Kim and it was Kristen. Okay, I know who's Kim and who's Kristen. She wrote, Rita, the coaching and mentoring is critical for success. And I want to add on modeling and turn that back to Don. The importance of modeling the leader, all of us, ME, model everything.
Yes.
What do you think, Don?
Well, I think that there's so much to think for one thing, especially when it's about vision, because vision includes everything and anything, right? You can have a vision of the future. You can have a vision of creating things, whatever. I think that's an element that lends itself to expansion and extension, right? Because if all you wanted was what you have, there's not much more you need to see, right? You need to then just focus on whatever it is you have. But if you're the person who, once they get successful, need to feel like there's more they could do to stay successful, where you compete with yourself, you challenge yourself, you say, this is too slow a pace for me. I gotta pick it up a notch. And it's the doing. It's funny, if you stay so busy with purpose, there's so many things you never worry about, right? But when you're sitting by yourself without a lot of purpose, pretty soon you're seeing things everywhere that, oh, I need to fix that, I need to clean that, and all of a sudden nothingness became busyness in your head. Where busyness can create nothingness in your head, where you're getting yourself back. You're weeding out the, oh, I'm worried about that person, and tomorrow I got to do that. And it's like, when it happens, until it does happen, you're wasting what you are doing. And I think that's people's vision. It should be benevolent vision, right? How many people have a vision that's taking everybody over the cliff, but it sounds like fun, and they're so convincing, and that's where, like in Forrest Gump, where he's running and you got 1,000 people running and everybody's asking, where are we going and why are we doing this? And no one knows. Right? Someone just decided to lead and get out front. Sometimes you got to jump off the cliff before you grow wings. And that's just the way it is. The easy jumps are not very exciting, and you're just fooling yourself. And the same thing, you don't want to be a daredevil and just invite something like that. But it's always, how much can we stretch here? Just like when you want to make something fit in a box, right? You tend to take this out, put this like pegs and stuff, and eventually you get it right. And I think sometimes you want to stay in a certain box because you're focused in that and you don't allow other things to get into that vision. And it's another thing, vision stealers, dream stealers. How many times you got a vision and you're so excited and you tell somebody and say, that is the dumbest thing I ever heard.
And that'll never work.
Well, or why you? Why are you doing this? Let's do it. You play it safe. And as soon as that happens, that enthusiasm has just dropped like 50%. And now you're starting to think, I didn't consider that. Maybe they know some I don't know. And then all that uncertainty. And you know what you say? I'll think about it tomorrow. Right? When you're just ready to hit the go button. And that's why a lot of people say, don't share things too early with people because they're not well baked. And the other thing is, you can't unring a bell, right? So once you say it, it's out there, and now people go, oh, another dumb idea never worked. It was like another dumb person I shared something with is really what it was. But anyway, here, Paul is always a greeter, meter, grateful to learn, share on vision. First keynote I delivered last year. That's terrific. Beverly's here. Zappo was brilliant. No wonder Amazon gobbled them up.
Yes.
Well, it's the people who do things that make you wonder for a second, how did they do that? Why did they do that? Right? And is there anything to that? Right? You've got a lot of false visionaries too out there. You got a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about, talk like they do. And I think the key then element is, what crowd, what audience are you playing with? And you're playing because if your vision isn't accepted as a vision, at least, it doesn't have to be a practice or a reality, then you're not in the right place because you're already seeing differently and being seen differently. And I think that's where people need to really act on, is when they're new to something, not buy it before they tried it or they saw what else was out there. You know, how many times until you shop for something did you say, boy, I'm glad I checked this out because it's $200 cheaper over there. And then, you know, because there are so many choices on the supply side, because so many people are always looking at the demand side,
Yes.
you know, what's coming to me? What am I getting versus how much is out there?
Right.
And then understand that part of it. So what I do believe is knowledge share like this gets
Mhm.
to shake it all around. You know, it's like if you make a drink or something, at a certain point you got to shake it or blend it, right? For it to really compose itself well. It's
Well, that's the importance of diversity, that when we have a very inclusive staff, well, or for whatever organization, if we have different people and we are accepting differences and applauding the differences, it will go a lot farther. And I made another note as we were talking that I hadn't mentioned about purpose and passion, which I always start with. The purpose and passion is what drives us once we have found it. I think it was Picasso that said something like, your goal in life is to find your purpose and then you need to share it. And I think that's kind of a wise statement. What do you think about that, Kristen?
I like that statement a lot, Rita. I think one of the things that it's aligning yourself with like-minded people too,
Yeah.
that have those same purposes and passions, and being able to recognize, oh, this isn't a good fit. Maybe, you know, maybe we don't see things the same way, and being able to accept that, because it's not always going to see things the same way.
Mhm.
You know, it takes me back to, I talk a lot and write a lot about the invisible backpack that people wear, that, you know,
Oh,
all of the things that people are going through that no one has any idea.
that's right.
And how you have to sometimes take that step back and say, I don't know what's in that bag that they're carrying. And I can't judge them for what they're doing because I can't see it from their lens. You know, I'm not looking through their lens. But
Yeah.
that goes back to the inclusive, you know, environment, and being able to say everyone belongs, even if we're different from one another. And,
We
you know,
should
building
applaud that, really.
absolutely, and celebrate it, and build
Celebrate.
that safety of everybody feeling that welcomeness. You know, that's something I
Yeah.
strongly believe in. As a former special education teacher, I'm all
Yeah.
about inclusion, and not just including, but making people feel like they belong. It's
Yeah.
not
It's
just you're in the room
absolutely.
with us, but it's we want you here, come work with us.
That's
And
what we
there's,
say about our show here. Don's show is
yes,
a community of belonging that he's established a safe
yep.
space. Don, I have another note that I wrote down just now about listening I wrote down listening with intention, observing closely. And then the other piece of the pie would be from Brad Hughes, what I learned last year. He's a great principal who taught me this. Always ask a second question. So listen with intention, observe closely, and always ask a second question. One or more of the above. What did you do, Don, or what do you think about getting to where someone that you care about in your personal life, or if it's a work life culture, what did you do? What did you do to really get close beside the managed by walking around in the open door? Once you had them, then what did you say? What did you do?
well, a lot of times it was situation. Most of the time, I was their only person between me and something.
Uh-huh.
You know, whether somebody
Right.
had, because everybody, when you have 72 people, every week someone has a birthday, right?
Yeah.
Every week someone has a death in the family. Every week someone has a birth,
Something.
you know, and the point is a lot of people don't have and can't plan for certain things. So they come in, I need $1,200. I need to get to St. Louis.
Yes.
I had a person said, I got picked up. I'm in jail. I need $500 and was over traffic tickets. So it
Mm.
was, you know, and they just didn't have that. So, and you know what? I always took it out of my own pocket. I said, don't put it through the business because then I got to put it on payables and receivables. And all the
Right.
bookkeepers got to know it. Here, from me to you. And you know, I never had one person that didn't pay me.
Yes.
You know, so
Build that
nothing was a
trusting
cost.
environment.
It was just a loan. But you know what that means to somebody at 3 a.m. that's the only person in the world that I can talk to that will help me. And you know, that spreads in the business because
Mhm.
what Carlos says to Rick, hey, Don took care of me here. And you know what it turned out? I had the lowest turnover rate,
Mm-hmm.
the lowest shrinkage rate.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you steal when I can give you the money?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'd rather do that and put you in so it's just a psychology. If you put yourself in that person's position, and the only way you know what that person's position is, if you played that position.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I started a company, it was me, my wife, and my dog. And I had to unload the trucks, stock the shelves, do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you never forget what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I always overpaid. That was just a part of, I just paid for the benefit I didn't have to spend on hiring, training, training. Here's a premium for being a quality person. And not to brag, but for 10 years in a row, we were in the top 10 workplaces in Denver.
Wow.
Because people just loved it because we loved them.
But that is something
right?
to brag.
Yeah, but it's the past, and the past only. I mean, and what you want to do is people buy into the future, and I think it's not what you say. There's a saying: no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Absolutely.
Right? And once you start showing that care early, too many people want to, direct vision when the vision's there instead of building towards it. Right? If you got good rapport, good communication. Once people know what's happening and how much you're into it and how valuable you think it is, people will just give you a pass, right? People even encourage you. It's like, hey, add more, we'll do more,
Right.
And that's when you get a team that's driving hard, running hard, but more importantly, playing hard. There was always celebrations. There was always recognitions. There was always that because it was deserving.
Right.
And you give back, you get. So what's your thoughts, Kristen?
Over delivery and grace. Those are the two words I wrote down. We've been talking quite a bit about over delivery. The only problem, I don't want to say problem, a challenge I have with that since I've been saying it is that people are already working very, very hard. Many people are doing 2 and 3 positions, really. And so I have to find a line between my belief in over delivering everything that I do and what we do with that line of driving them literally off the cliff. But grace, I really wanted to mention grace too, that I think we're very hard on ourselves and others sometimes in grace. Don or Kristen?
Yeah, Kristen?
Grace is critical. I like I said, it's taking that step back empathetically and saying, I don't know where that person's been and what they've been through, from that standpoint. But I think it's funny how vision so much goes back to relationships in so many ways. And if you've cultivated those relationships, a lot of times then you're on that same page and you can see things the same way. When I was working several years ago as a behavior specialist, I had a teacher that came to me that was just up in arms because the student was so bad and he was not being, he was not following directions and not doing what she said and not doing the work for class. And my response to her was, well, what did his mom say when you called her? And she said, I don't have time to do that. And I said, you're helping this child that you are not investing in him and that you don't care about him and that you're not even attempting a relationship. He's not going to try and learn from you. So, there's that component too, that if you want people to see things the way you do, you have to get them on board before you can even say, here, this is the way you should see it. Going back to that building, that cultivation of relationship.
Yeah, I think that's so key. And, we talk about vision as if it has to be sold all the time or somehow integrated somehow so it fits. But a lot of vision really emits amazement, wonderment.
Yes.
The wow factor when someone says, let me show you what I just put together. And it's beautiful. And people just, that's what art's about, right? Someone shared their vision with paint and canvas. And there's people looking at the Mona Lisa that study it their whole life, one picture or one artist. And they keep finding more. I forget who it was on the show the other day, And it's kind of funny, like books or movies, the second time you read it, it's like, well, when did they put this part in?
Right.
When I was sleeping, how did this end up in this book? Because you weren't noticing it. Maybe you're daydreaming, maybe you were thinking ahead.
Right.
But, I think if you're going to take vision or any word, why not look at like a doll, and how do you dress it up, right? How do you add fun to it? Because it's like baking. It's like, hey, we're going to add a little cinnamon to this, walnuts. I mean, we could have left the banana cake alone, but we're going to do a little bit extra here for the people who like the walnuts, and that's how you sell it, right? Is, hey, I took Jim's walnuts, threw it in here. Mary, we got her covered. At the end of the day, we're going to have 6 of these delivered, and we're going to have some coffee and eat this wonderful cake. I mean, it's the packaging, the presentation of the vision. It's the enthusiasm and excitement and delivery. If you're mumbling a great vision, most people are like falling asleep already. That's where people, they want fun, they want energy, they want excitement, they want honesty, they want all the good stuff. But all that good stuff gets the buy-in, and that gets you the commitment and the result. But if you launch with no gas in the tank, and you launch with a bunch of people mumbling between themselves and whispering, and what's going on.
Right. Parking lot chat.
Yeah, everybody's already past judgment, and now we got to deal with it. It's like the fashion trend of the year. The other thing, vision needs to be changed when vision changes.
Yes.
Why should it be like, and admitting, hey, I thought this until I found this, and now we didn't have worse, we just got better, right? And that's the difference, is where's the trend towards this vision? And ultimately, if your vision is achieved, what do we achieve here? Because then everybody knows what the buy-in is. If I say, if we can do this and the company makes another $1 million, well, that's wonderful. But if everybody got 5,000 of it who participated, and that's where pay for performance comes in. You're actually paying them on the interest they just earned, what you included them in, and then they can say, I'll put in 3 more hours next week if we're that close. I need that $5,000. And I want you to also have another program that's just as good if we do this, right? So it's all that. Rita.
Change. Right when you said it, I just written down change. How do we deal with change, whether it's our personal life or an organizational culture? Again, I always make that distinction. In my in my expertise, I always say that the only one who likes change is a wet baby. And so I'm wondering what all of us here think about change, and how do we as leaders get people to change when they don't want to change, but they need to change, and we need another way to get there. Let's put it like that. What do you think, Kristen?
I think when I was a supervisor, one of the things I used to do was, when I got pushed back, from someone on, we were implementing and onboarding a new program, and I got a lot of pushback on, I don't know how to use that. I'm not going to use it. And I always took the attitude of, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I'm not going to hold your hand and help you through. I'm here, I will support you, and I will help you grow through this if you meet me and agree. I can take the elephant in water, but I can't make the elephant necessarily lean over and drink that water. So what can I do to make you take that drink when we get there? And that goes back to even working with difficult kids on behavior of, getting them to want to do better. And a lot of that, I feel like a broken record, goes back to that relationship of, does that person believe that you truly care about them? And if they don't, then they're most likely not going to be willing to take that chance of change. But change is so critical, and I'm not a good person with change. I like to have a plan. I like to have a backup plan to my plan. I'm one of those people that, if we say we're doing it this way, then that's what we're doing. But I think the last 5-6 years have really kind of changed my mentality about that, and that if we're looking to always be growing, then change is inevitable. And to have a growth mindset, you have to be looking at what can I do better. So that's something I've taken that step back of, okay, I did that, but what next time, what do I need to do differently to make it even better? And that's something I've implemented in my own. If I do a presentation or a coaching job or something like that, I immediately afterwards write down what I think went well and what I think didn't go well, so that I have that ability to do some reflection on how can I change this moving forward.
Mhm.
So, a lot of that is the cultivating of relationships, and then also
Yes.
trusting, that
You have trust.
you're
Change
gonna,
is inevitable. Growth is optional.
yes,
That's a good
absolutely.
thing. And I think it's understanding the process,
Mhm.
because there is no outcomes. Everything's a continuum, right?
Mm.
So once this is completed, this may lend itself to the next vision. It's almost
Are
like,
you looking at benchmarks, Don?
well, it's almost in a way like climbing a mountain.
Okay.
The higher up, the more you see,
Yeah.
right? And the more you see, now the more you can climb in the right direction, because climbing is always getting to a base camp, pivoting, staying, waiting for weather to change, all that stuff.
Right.
So what they're looking for is opportunistic opportunities
Mhm.
to make the move, right? It's going to be clear for a day. We got to make some, or it's going to be a storm. We better sit tight.
Right.
But it's also, if you get commitment in the beginning, you get direction through it. So if you had 5 people that help you build that plan, along the way, you're going to say, hey, we're getting a little bit light here. What are we going to do to beef it up? Where do we need to put our new energy? It's kind of like that game in Canada, they pitched that brick thing, curling, right? And there's one person that like throws it, and then they
Right.
get 2 broomers
Yeah.
that keep brooming it to direct it
Mhm.
to get where it is. And one person by themselves is not enough people to,
Right.
to really complete one, and then add the other factor,
Yeah.
comfort,
Ah.
right? Does it have to be like a challenge? Does it have to be an uphill climb? Is there anything that can like give it a tailwind here?
Mm.
And how good are we at executing the vision before we judge the vision,
Mm.
right? So in other words, hey, I had a great vision, but hey, 3 people fell asleep, 2 people didn't show up, and whatever happened, it ain't, it's not like it's not my fault, but it truly isn't, to your point, aligned, right? And is everybody on the same page here? Are you getting ahead of ourselves? Are you falling behind? And that's what a facilitator leader does.
Mhm.
They said, Napoleon, they considered him the 100,000 person man. And the reason being is when he would show up on the battlefield,
Mhm.
his presence would create the terror to the enemy of 100,000, but more importantly, the loyalty and the encouragement of his troops,
Yes.
right? The most disappointing thing is to walk in a general's tent and seeing him crying in his hands, and the war isn't doing too well at that point.
Right. Confidence drops there.
Let me cover some more people here.
Yes.
Network. Okay, clarity gives clear focus to make choices that align with our life goals.
Great.
Steve says, when life gets blurry, adjust your focus. So true.
Love that.
Lambola comes back with vision killers are bad to have around. They never see good in anything and will only cut short one's high hopes, wonderful dreams, and more importantly, your energy, because once that gets sapped,
Mhm.
your creative juices are stopping flowing and all that other stuff. And it's almost like, why did I even talk about that to this person? And that's where I ended up. But you can find a happy person. I don't want to be judged in eating when we have felt, just wondering how I can see. Okay, got it. Every situation is a social situation in a sense. What isn't talked about enough is, personally, I don't believe the people closest to us, our vision, it's a form of protection or lens, love. Yeah, and I think, some things play in certain audiences and some things play in other audiences, right? You don't go to a Kentucky Fried Chicken and order pizza. You know, the attribute grace is a gift. Time to do what needs to be done. So true, Minerva. And you know, I find being humble, being modest goes a long way.
Yes.
You know, one more work
Yes.
situation, everybody took care of their own office.
Right.
You know, I vacuumed my office, I took my trash out. And,
Mhm.
you know, because everybody should be responsible for what they do. And when even the owner or the boss is doing it, there was no parking spaces with people's names on it.
Mhm.
You know, why create separation?
Right.
You know, when you can say, hey, everybody's everybody. And I said, everybody is equal as a person and deserves that respect. You know,
Yes.
and after that, it's whatever people do that justifies it. It's interesting for me. I had no desire to change the world until my aunt wrote me a card. I always say she held my vision for me until I had the courage to take it and pursue it. The past 3 years were magical. That's great, you know, and that just shows other people's visions are visions you can adopt, right? You don't have to be originating it. You just have to take it to another level or a better level. Has anyone inspired the vision or path you took in your life? I don't know. That's kind of a, with 5 minutes to go, a tough one. Here we go with Minerva. Today, grace was given me to enjoy some of our empowerment. So you're so kind. And you know, that's what makes the difference is everybody making a little difference. That's the reason you share vision is because sometimes the only way it can be completed is in a group. You know, it takes 10 people to row a boat somewhere. You got to have the 10, right? And everybody then is responsible, but also deserves the credit, even for the person who just did a little bit. It was enough to get it done. And, you know, achievement celebration should be included.
Mhm.
You know, if we do this, then this is what we get. Well, we get more benefits or more whatever. For me, your vision shouldn't change. It should be aspirational and unachievable to begin.
Mhm.
Very good, Danny. Will we ever achieve complete racial equality? No, but that's a vision that we should all work towards every single day. That was MLK's vision.
And I was born on his birthday, and that was always part of my vision, going back to what Paul said.
Yeah, and missions are
Mhm.
achievable steps on the way to that vision. That's why we say mission
Right.
accomplished.
That's
Yes.
it. Vision to mission. You shouldn't
With the
do
mission
mission without vision.
statements to go with our vision. Yes.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
that's why NASA is so great at the visions not only they project,
Mhm.
but the realities they create. And then you've got all these other private space companies. And, you know, mankind has always been searching what's behind that next corner, what's underneath that ocean, you know, what's up in the sky. And that's what we're meant to be, is explorers, visionaries. And
Trailblazers.
yeah, and you know, no one gets out of here alive anyways.
That's true.
So the key is when you got a chance to play and a vision does come to you, there's a purpose and a reason. Sometimes people ask why instead of asking, how do I get going here?
Right.
Mhm.
You know, if you're given a gift, enjoy it, accept it, and use it. And I think people are gifts. And you got to unwrap their presence that they have once in a while for them and with them. You know, let me see what you got in there. And it's amazing when people finally get related to in the way no one ever related to them, you know, treated them in ways they never thought were possible again.
Mhm.
You know, it's that second chance
Yes.
for kids, for people in business, you know, and everything is a learning experience and then becomes an earning experience.
Mhm.
You know, you got to learn it before you can earn it and support it. And I think that's where little things done right over time can build much bigger visions because you're practicing it every day. You don't have a revelation and one day that's your vision for the year until another thing strikes you right. So it looks like 59 and 11 seconds. We got a couple comments. Your presence is felt. So is yours, Minerva.
Yes.
Energy here is just tremendous. Our own by the, I know that, and you can actually go get an A&W.
Oh, there we
See, here
go.
it's Taco Bell and KFC.
Oh no! Wow.
Yeah, it says go to extra miles, never crowded. Well, you know what? Some people never go the first mile, let alone the extra mile. So if you know, and you know, just like money, they say the first million's the hardest. You know, the second one comes a lot faster. It's the same thing in life. Sia's here.
Hey, Sia.
So far behind. Here you are. And it's so nice for everybody to be supporting each other, coming out for each other. And that's what the meaning of life is: community, love, acceptance, and joy. You know, and if you can include that in your vision, how great is that? And sometimes one last caveat, sometimes not all of your vision gets achieved, but even if it's 80%, that's a lot of stuff. And then you throw the 20 into the next space shot that you're about to launch.
Right.
See how far you can get it up there in the skies. Here we go, going to, okay, it was a pleasure. Thanks, Minerva says. Last question here, going, okay, is what got me fired from taxi driving. That's a practical, realistic example of that. So I want to just give Kristen a chance to share her final thoughts on how her experience today went and what her new thoughts possibly are of vision.
Absolutely. I have to say this has been a fabulous conversation, and it's fascinating to me how one word can become such a conversation, and there's such a web that ties it all back together. And, you know, listening in yesterday on the conversation, it's overlapping so much on what was said yesterday about being able to communicate with people and building those relationships. And I think a big piece, you know, as a former teacher, I always worked on positive reinforcement. That was something we always were told: people need to be positively reinforced. Well, students grow up, and when they're in the adult workforce, they still need that positive reinforcement. So remembering as leaders that we have to build up the people around us and help them see positively, you know, the same way that we do, you know, and that in the best, you know, outcome is that they get on board and see things that way. But if not, you can hopefully work through those pain points together.
Great point. Very good. Very good. Rita?
Gratitude. Just it's always about gratitude. And that's what I would end with, that it really is all about gratitude for those that are working so hard. So many servant leaders are sitting right here or wherever they happen to be today. But the reality is, I believe, Kristen, that everybody's a teacher.
Yes.
Certainly.
Oh, very much.
So I need to end there with gratitude. I'm just so grateful for so many people in my life, and you, Don, all that I've learned. And if we share our gratitude and our love, I think that love transforms everything. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think between gratitude and love, it's hard to top that. So we'll kind of close with, you know, all of what we said. And it is important when people have a vision to have a happy vision, because that will take you beyond where you're at today. You know, it's like the checks in the mail. It's once you know it's coming, you already feel like you already have it in the bank, and you stop worrying about money, or you start planning what you're going to do with whatever new things you have. And you can change your vision. You know, how many times do you look to the right, to the left, up above, below, and you don't take that into account? It's just, you know, the way it is. But if you can really focus something, you know, laser focused, that, you know, and we had the word undeniable.
Yes, we did.
You know, when you are just an undeniable person, or no, whatever it is, you're just committed to not ever being told I can't and I won't, you know, because I've had that. I swear to you, so many people came in to situations and say, you'll never make it. I mean, I'm talking people I knew well. People actually were professionals that worked with me and said, you know, sorry to say this is what's going to happen. And you know what? What do I say? Why? Well, because no one's been able to do it, or no one. I said, well, whose fault is that?
Right.
Them or me? Right.
Right.
And if, you know, I believe if you can think it, you can do it. And if you really believe in it, you know, there's one last thing I'll close on, is if your why is big enough, you'll always figure out the how to. you know, and if your vision creates that why for you getting up every day and going to sleep every night, and passion also goes a huge distance when you're talking vision, because, you know, there was someone who said, sometimes I want to light myself on fire just to see who will come to watch me burn, you know? And
Well,
it was a great theologian who said that, theologian, I guess you might say, because his speeches were so fiery, or, you know, that he equated it with just exploding into flame and stuff like that. Anyways, that's a little too deep and heavy for a closing, so we'll leave it. We'll take that out, and we'll see you all tomorrow. I'll just tell you very quickly who we have. Tomorrow is Thursday, so definitely we have Kelly. Friday is, I believe it's going to be someone wonderful. At my first glance, I can't think of it because now my mouse just froze. So with that said, thank you very much. Plug it in my mouse right here. And we'll see everybody later. Thank you, Kristen. You've been
Thank
great.
you. I
That's
appreciate
great.
it.
And look forward to having you back.
Absolutely. I
Thank
would
you,
love to.
Rita. You're just wonderful, and appreciate all you bring to every one of these. So with that said, I'm going to sign off. And once I can get my mouse working. So until I can get the mouse, I guess we're not going anywhere for a little bit, but everybody can go over. This is just the finale of the finale. So
Well, if you want to keep going, I'll go back to my
oh,
mother.
here, I got it going now. Great. Okay.